With storytelling and messaging and positioning, like it's never done. You're constantly trying to make it better. The more you invest in building champions within your users and your customers, the more demand you're going to drive in the future. I've honestly never had a campaign that was this successful ever in my career. I think it was because we really were thoughtful about what the message was and when we launched it. But one of the big things that made it so successful was we have a lot of amazing users. My advice for a lot of brands when they're thinking about their messaging positioning is what are the outcomes and ensuring that you have data to back up those outcomes.
Behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened.
A quick pause because, as you'll hear in this episode especially, it can be so hard to stay abreast of the newest AI developments around go-to-market with how quickly things are changing. That's why I'm so excited for ZoomInfo's GTM 25 virtual conference. They're gathering thousands of revenue leaders to explore how high-performing teams and individuals are leveraging go-to-market intelligence and AI to crush revenue goals. It's on May 7th. Mark your calendar. It's virtual and free. Whether you're accelerating pipeline, boosting close rates, or transforming your revenue team, this is your chance to gain the insights you need to stay ahead. You'll hear from industry experts, connect with peers, and learn about the latest AI developments. Walk away with proven AI tactics that you can directly implement for your go-to-market team. Hope to see you virtually there, and I'll drop the sign-up link into the show notes. Now, back to the episode. Hello and welcome back to the GTM podcast. This is Sophie Buonassisi, VP of Marketing at VC firm GTM Fund and our media brand GTM Now. I'm joined by a fellow marketer, Harmony Anderson. Harmony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here chatting with you today.
Super happy to be chatting with you here. And it's great to see you in person in San Francisco recently. Been looking forward to this conversation for a while.
It's going to be fun.
Definitely. And before we dig into it, always like to do a quick bio for the listeners. Harmony is an entrepreneurial marketing leader with deep expertise in building global go-to-market strategies at growth startups. She's currently the VP of Growth and Marketing at Superhuman, the most productive email app ever made for teams. She has also led high-performing teams at Armada, Engine, Outreach, and Thousand Eyes. She is deeply passionate about creating world-class marketing campaigns, leveraging data-driven strategies to accelerate customer acquisition, engagement, and retention. She also drives extreme rigor around operational excellence and efficiency, ensuring GTM teams execute with precision using repeatable and predictable playbooks.
Thanks for the intro. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you. We actually got connected by us becoming Superhuman customers, which is kind of the long and short, maybe the behind the scenes for everyone listening. Though I know you know Max and folks at the fund for a long time, dating back to Outreach.
Yeah, it's such a small world. Max actually hired me at Outreach way back when and was one of the best people I've ever worked with. And so it's good to stay connected in a different capacity now. So it's a lot of fun to see what you all are doing right now.
100%. And likewise, we appreciate it. I mean, back in, time flies. It was probably Q3, Q4. We were at a point where we just said, we need to figure out some kind of email productivity. And so we went around, ran a few tests and did our bit of due diligence and ended up finding that Superhuman was kind of highest performing, best fit. It's been a lot of fun and we'll dig into some examples. But what I really wanted to connect on today is a very, very common inquiry. And I thought you'd be the perfect person for the topic because both of us as marketers, we have to pay extreme attention to messaging and the attention to detail around messaging. And now, how to market AI is such an interesting topic because everyone's claiming to have AI. So how do you actually market something that everyone's claiming to have? And that's what we're going to be digging into today.
It's such a fun topic. And the last few companies I've worked at have been very AI focused. And I had this realization last year when I was kind of in between jobs, took some time off, and I was researching kind of cool companies okay, where could I potentially want to go in-house? And one of the things I noticed was I was doing research on LinkedIn. And every time I went to a company profile on LinkedIn, they all use the same words. Literally, I could not figure out what the companies did. It was all, we do AI in different industries or different types of products, but they all sounded the exact same. And I think that's the hardest part as a marketer, is like setting yourself apart now in the world of AI, which is just everywhere.
Definitely. Yeah. I used to do a lot of message testing actually back in a past life around conversion optimization and seeing kind of top of funnel impact all the way through to retention and revenue. And it was so interesting because you'd strip back, for example, all the messaging from a page and see, what does it actually articulate? How does it speak from imagery? What if you blur it over? What if you take the messaging without the other context?
Yeah.
Can people understand it? So always an interesting exercise.
It's fun. It's a fun challenge
It
for
is.
marketers, right? Like, it's never ending. There's 101 ways to write something. And I was actually working with my CEO the other day, trying to write copy for our homepage. And he was like, I will rewrite it 22 times until I get it right. And that's the hardest part. It's subjective, really. It is. And so, but I think it's one of the most challenging parts of being a marketer is storytelling and writing and positioning and just making sure it fits with your audience and it resonates.
Absolutely. And so in a crowded AI market, what would you say are the key components to actually helping people stand out from a messaging and positioning perspective?
Yeah. So there are two things I've learned over the last few years of trying to build positioning, messaging, and storytelling for different brands. And the two things I've learned are, one, focus on the outcomes. Really be thinking about the pain that your market has, your prospects and your customers, and how your solution actually solves the pain and actually drives outcomes for the business. So really focusing on that value selling, value positioning versus just feature selling and feature positioning. So for instance, like we just did this huge survey and study over the last couple of months, specifically focused on AI productivity, which is what Superhuman does. We're an AI native email app. And we learned that leaders across multiple different industries, but specifically within tech and then within professional services, are expecting a basically 300%, gigantic productivity gains through AI over the next few years. They feel like they've only gone to around 20% of that over the last year and a half since like AI became much more popular. And they have no idea what it really means and what they need to do to actually get to those productivity gains. And so we looked at that and we said, okay, as a marketing team, like where do we fit within that? Like how much gains and what are the outcomes that our solution has and solves within the market? And we basically updated and are still in the process, honestly, of updating all of our messaging and positioning to align to that. So it's very data driven, it's outcome based. We're an AI solution that actually insert your value prop. We save your sellers time managing their email, and therefore they have more time to actually drive revenue or to close the deals or to go to the amazing events and network. They don't have to be constantly like triaging their inbox. That's a great example of just how we've leveraged it. But my advice for a lot of brands when they're thinking about their messaging positioning is, what are the outcomes, and ensuring that you have data to back up those outcomes. It's one of the first things I would think about.
Great points. And I love the data tied in there. It's almost a framework in terms of the messaging, the data, the outcome.
Yeah. And then the next thing I always tell people too is show, don't tell. Again, what we've learned over the talking to a lot of buyers and doing the survey and doing a ton of research is people still don't understand AI. They really don't. They don't like deeply get how AI, or like the vision of how AI can be integrated into their day to make their lives better. And so one way to set yourself apart is like, we don't just do AI, show them what it actually means within their workflows or within their day to day. So my second is like show, don't tell. Talk about, of course, like you have your positioning, your messaging, your storytelling up front, and then back it up with videos, with demos, putting it into perspective for them as a user and for their particular use case is so incredibly valuable for them than being able to see the vision of like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think I could use AI to do XYZ. And so like email for us is like so intrinsic. It's like before I even had heard of Superhuman, like I use ChatGPT or Claude all the time to like write content, write messaging, like have it like paraphrase, like a big thought bank and pull out notes. But I didn't actually realize that I could use AI to do things like triage my inbox. Like I don't need to do anything. I just log in and it's like basically done for me. Half my emails are written. It's prioritized my inbox. It's helped with my calendar. Like it totally changes your mindset of how you can integrate it into your day to day.
What kind of advice would you have, or what are your thoughts on website messaging and positioning around the show don't tell? Because you made two really good points there on focus on the outcomes and show don't tell.
Yeah.
Because use cases can be so nuanced, what can companies do to kind of show don't tell, knowing that everybody has different use cases?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great question, and it depends on what your product does, who your market is, like who's your core ICP, and like really deeply understanding who you have built your product for. I think a lot of companies either can generalize too much and say like my product fits for everybody. Like everyone kind of has like the rose-colored lenses when it comes to their product. And so it can either be like way too broad and then therefore it doesn't resonate with anybody. So that's like one thing that can really trip you up as a marketer. Or they go too detailed and like too pigeonholed in one very specific use case that isn't actually going to help you drive substantial demand because it's too narrow and too niche. And so that's one thing. I mean, this is marketing 101. I know you know this, Sophie, but it's really being thoughtful and strategic about who your market is and who you're talking to. And then taking that and saying, okay, what are like the top 3 to 5? I would say I wouldn't go deeper than that. What are the top 3 to 5 use cases? Whether or not it's for a function, it's for a vertical, it's for a very specific user, it's a buyer persona, like everyone, segments their market differently, and then focus on those first 3 to 5, get those live, and then track, measure, and optimize and iterate from there.
Great advice. That's fantastic. Well, we'll definitely see a rise in videos.
Yeah, for sure, videos. And then there's a lot of different demo type of software out there where there's like videos and there's just product walkthroughs. There's interactive gaming where you can actually build like simplified versions of your features and your solutions so people can actually like get their hands into it. I think with AI, it's really important to think about like all of the unique creative ways you can build this into your collateral, whether or not it's a website or it's an email or whatever. Or if it's even in product. But I think the big thing is just understanding how people research. Like, how do they actually discover and learn about a product? And one thing, too, that I always try to go back to is AI is a really interesting space right now where there's AI, there's AI native, there's AI powered, there's agentic AI, there are AI agents. There are all these like buzzwords around AI. And most people don't know what they mean. Again, it goes back to like, you have to educate the market. You have to have your story, talk about your outcomes, and then you need to be able to show how your product actually fits in there. So that's another thing of just like, don't lose sight of that. Like, make sure you understand like how educated truly your market is on like what you're trying to sell, because they may not be at all. And so then you kind of got to start from the basics.
What do you use when you're looking to assess how educated buyers are?
Yeah, so we're constantly doing customer calls with customers, calls with prospects. We do surveys like the one I was kind of mentioning, the productivity and AI survey we did last month. I also will do like SEO research. Like, are people searching for these things? Are they clicking on articles about it? How often do we see it listed in PR, in press? It's like truly doing like a market analysis of these things. And it's so much is changing in AI right now that like 2 weeks ago, a lot of our messaging positioning actually for the last 6 months was as AI powered. So I use that as an example. And about a month ago, we decided like AI powered isn't explicit enough for like what we're actually doing, which we believe is it's easier to talk about it when we use the words and keywords like AI native. And then so that was like a month ago, we decided to make that switch. And then even a couple of days ago, we were like, now people are talking about agentic AI. It's like, where do we fit that in to the overarching
changing
storytelling?
So quickly.
It literally changes week over week. And so it depends what you're in, what industry you're in and what you're selling. But going deep into that and just recognizing that people start out at different levels of like their knowledge on things like AI. And so it is up to you as a marketer to educate, inform, and then really talk about how you drive outcomes and success.
Makes sense, Harmony. And I mean, those are two fantastic tips. So focus on outcomes, show, don't tell. Once you have that kind of pain, the messaging, the outcomes for those personas and a good understanding, how do you think about actually leveraging that kind of almost feels like you've created it into more of a storytelling component, and you've almost emphasized the storytelling necessity in this age of AI. How do you actually translate that into a demand gen engine?
The kind of approach I usually take and the philosophy I have is take the storytelling, package it up into a campaign, and then leverage that campaign in all of your different channels. So like, where do you actually put it in market, and make sure you can push it as far and as fast as possible through the market. One of the big things I always think about and what I do when I go into new companies is I try to schedule like a large tier 1 or like a marquee campaign launch as fast as humanly possible. It could be a campaign that's focused on a specific story or a message. It could be a campaign that's focused on a product or like a major product launch. It could be seasonal. Like there's a lot of different types of campaigns, and a lot of businesses and marketing leaders define that differently. So I would say like make sure you're all speaking the same language as you're actually building a campaign framework and structure, but take the messaging, the positioning, the outcome-based stories that you've built, package it up into a really thoughtful campaign with programs that align, and put it into market. And I'm a firm believer of like the lightning strike mentality or strategy, where you package it up, you have a moment in time where like you make a huge splash, and then you follow it up with the rolling thunder. And I know it's like, I'm like, there's so much marketing jargon in that, but it actually really works. And I've seen tons of success doing that. And then just ensuring that you don't just have like a campaign and that's it. Like you've got to keep going. Like what is the fast follow? What are the campaigns that align to that you do the next month or the next quarter? What are the product launches that support it? Is so incredibly, incredibly valuable.
100%. You guys had a really cool campaign actually at the beginning of the year. And I remember seeing it because we were pretty fresh customers at that point. And I was like, that is so clever. New year, new inbox. How did you think about the planning process around, one, the messaging, kind of the packaging of that campaign? If we want to get, really tactical for people listening, that itself as a campaign, and then the thunder afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So I started at the end of November, Superhuman. We had an executive offsite, and I remember hearing our CEO and one of our leaders say that we usually will see a slight spike in new users in January because people have New Year's resolutions that are around like productivity and efficiency, and like I want to be better at my job, or I want to be better at XYZ, like the gym effect as we were calling it. And so I had this light bulb moment where I was like, okay, they see a slight spike. Can we actually make that a thing? Like how big can we make that? And it was perfect timing because I usually like to launch a campaign really quickly regardless after I start. And so I went to the team and I was like, I've heard this is a thing. Let's make it a bigger thing and really lean into this seasonal view of like New Year's resolutions. We have a product that truly solves a pain and an efficiency and productivity pain. It's like, let's lean into that story. And then it was, okay, what data do we actually have to add into the actual narrative and, pain points? So we have a lot of great product data that's based on like saving time. So you can save 4 hours per week with Superhuman. We know that if you use Superhuman AI, you're 35% more efficient and productive within your day, within your email, like within your inbox. And we took that and we basically built this brand new end-to-end campaign that included long-form strategic content. We actually had a virtual event, a customer webinar, which I'll get into in a second. We had a video. We had a very thoughtful ad messaging end-to-end for all of our different channels. We did a big social takeover. We increased paid programs. So we had this also run in all of our Google programs. We did organic and paid social. We also increased our affiliate advertising as well. And we just we took it and we're like, let's just put it everywhere. Increase spend, have a really thoughtful story, have really great creative, and it's seasonal. So we're like, it was almost like the perfect storm of a campaign. We did it all at once. And I'm honestly never had a campaign that was this successful ever in my career. This is the top, best it's ever been. And I think it was because we really were thoughtful about what the message was and when we launched it. Timing was everything for this one in particular. But one of the big things that made it so successful was we have a lot of amazing users. We have tens of thousands of users who would literally do anything for Superhuman. They love the product so much. They talk about it all the time. We don't even have to ask people to publish content on our behalf. They just do it. They're sharing in Twitter, on LinkedIn. And that has primarily been a lot of mostly organic. And so we said, maybe if we just like give them, a little more of a push and a little bit more of an incentive to be sharing. And it was part of the reason it was so successful. We like heavily increased user generated content, UGC, and affiliate. And we had a 60% increase in new seats month over month throughout that campaign, which is like really, really incredible.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. That almost feels like an elongated lightning in a way. The thunder itself was just naturally created through, I'm sure, user-generated content and so forth after the campaign.
It kept going and going and going. And the one thing with seasonal campaigns are that they're seasonal. So like there is an end date, like especially with like New Year's resolutions, like I gave it 6 weeks. It's like we have 6 weeks of this campaign. And so as we're planning for this campaign, we also in real time have to be planning for when it becomes irrelevant because we're too far past this New Year's resolution type of timeline. And so we planned for that at the same time. And so we had this evergreen, we like pivoted from, okay, New Year, new inbox, we had an amazing event. We have all of this great positioning. We have data-driven outcome, storytelling. And then 6 weeks in, and I think we did like right between 5 and 6 weeks, we took out the seasonal positioning and then we made it evergreen. And it kept going, honestly. Like the momentum slowed down a little bit, but it got us through to our next major product launch, which happened about 8 weeks after this campaign launch, which is great.
That's incredible. And that's a helpful timestamp for anyone listening, just thinking about the volume or kind of size of splash and impact and that timeline between your next campaign too.
One thing we did too, which I tell marketers as well, of like there are programs that are kind of like I would consider somewhat old school, but still have a lot of legs. And one of those are virtual events or webinars. Like you hear the word webinar and you're like, ugh, like do I actually have to attend a webinar? And it's just like annoying. But our webinar strategy, like in Q1, we drove, 5,800 registrants for our virtual events and well over like 2,000 attendees. And that was both with customers and prospects. But one of the best things was we got so much great customer feedback on the virtual event. So webinars and events don't necessarily need to just be for driving direct demand, but they can serve a greater purpose too of getting feedback from your users, thinking about the roadmap for your product, like just having that extra connection point is something that I would not underestimate because if they're still like virtual events are still alive and well. So highly recommend keeping those as part of your strategy.
You heard it here, everyone. Digital live events, webinars, they're here to stay.
Here to stay.
And that's fantastic. It is a feedback loop in itself, right? And one that you can actually run at scale as opposed to more the one-to-one interviews. Like you said, you're always talking to customers. So I'm sure that's just a different format, different kind of narrative, different feedback loop. In the spirit of feedback loops, earlier you mentioned, the language is changing so quickly. Now the latest is agentic workflows. How do you think about the packaging speed and execution of campaigns in respect to the quickly evolving timeline? Because it does feel like now things are shifting quicker than ever before. How do teams, founders, marketers, anyone listening, how do they keep up from a campaign perspective with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question and it's not easy. Like, I'm not going to pretend like there's a silver bullet with that. I would say the big thing is just you have to constantly be listening and evolving. Like, I am a firm believer with storytelling and messaging and positioning. Like, it's never done. You're constantly trying to make it better, whether or not there are new buzzwords that are coming up in the market or you're launching new product features. And so therefore your narrative changes. It's just a constant iteration and making it better and improving it. I will say that I don't like doing larger overhauls of messaging and positioning more than like 1 to 2 times per year. And that's like even pretty like that's a lot even in and of itself. But campaigns are how you can take that foundational umbrella narrative and messaging and making sure it's relevant in the market at a given time. Like that's the great thing about campaigns is like they don't have to live forever. You can have evergreen campaigns and it's just your core foundational narrative and they just keep going, but you can also react to the market with campaigns. And so that's one thing just to think about is when you're put in the time and effort when you're doing overarching positioning, but know that it's never set in stone. And if you wanted to change, like what we did a month ago was we changed everything from AI powered to AI native, like almost overnight, you can do it. And that's okay. And so, especially in the world of AI, that is changing literally weekly. It's okay to make those, to evolve it.
Very cool. Great advice. And, we've talked about campaigns and more of the outcome focused emphasis and overall narrative. How does that fit into like a program perspective? Like what does that really kind of mean for the overarching program?
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at my definition of a program are the channels and the plays that drive a campaign narrative. So, like, you've got your overarching messaging and positioning as your like major brand umbrella, and then you have campaigns underneath that, and then within campaigns, you have programs. And so, like, you can't have a successful campaign without programs that actually like fuel it. One of my like general philosophies for marketing end to end is that everyone, they consume content different ways, they care about different things. Some people are really deep on digital, and so they see advertisements. Some aren't, just surfing the web, and so they need emails. There's just a bunch of different ways to drive demand and to drive awareness around your brand. And so you need a pretty healthy breadth and depth of programs to fuel your campaign, to fuel your narrative. So a few of them for me that are really always like low-hanging fruit that I would just generally do are paid social. Like I work in tech and I work in startups. Like LinkedIn is just like, it's all over the place. You got to have your organic and your paid social. A lot of times in growth startups where there isn't a super healthy database of buyers that you can then nurture and prospect into. And so I would do, account-based content syndication, or I would try to like get my content out there like through different channels that like are within communities that I don't have access to. I'm also really focused on doing co-marketing, similar to like, our partnership with Go-to-Market Fund and GTM now, and thinking about the companies out there that have similar audiences but aren't competing with you. Like, how can you partner with them to get your name out there? So those are a lot of the things that I'm thinking about usually when I'm trying to think about programs, or like, what can I do where I can drive the biggest impact without the largest budgets, and go as hard and heavy into those as possible before you actually like start expanding beyond it.
I love it. Always the perspective, especially in the startup world, looking at the ROI and getting every bit of juice from the squeeze.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quality over quantity though, for sure. I always believe that. So, keep that in mind as like a best practice.
Great advice. And this has been super tactical, really helpful. Now I'd love to transition over to a bit more of a story from your career, because you've had an incredible career, built marketing programs at multiple fantastic companies. What are some of kind of the key learnings, or was there a pivotal moment throughout your career that stands out most for you?
There's one thing, this is more of like a professional development learning that I've had over the last 15 years-ish, but I've worked at a lot of great companies, a lot of great people. I always come in as like, I own usually large budgets and I spend a lot of money because I'm a marketer. And so like the biggest thing with that is like bringing leaders, one, like making friends, building relationships within, the companies, with your business stakeholders, making sure you bring them along the journey with you. You'll have a lot less friction as you're scaling and as you're hiring and learning and piloting and testing new things. But one of the things I've learned early on, every single company I've gone into, actually except Superhuman, I've known somebody who has worked there prior. Like, they've all been through referrals. And I used to take a lot of stock and put a lot of stock into like the feedback people would give me about who to talk to, who's the right person you should know, like, what are they like? What do they care about, especially when it comes to senior leadership? And I've had it happen one or two times, and outreach was like the most extreme time it happened, where I came in and the people I knew were like, oh, this senior leader, like, just super intense, like, be careful with them, like, gave me kind of like this kind of scary feedback on like working with this. It was the CRO at the time. And so I was like super nervous. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like just stay away, steer clear. And it really hurt my success in the very beginning, like the first 6 months of my tenure at Outreach. And this person who like I had gotten this feedback about now is like one of my closest mentors. She is incredible, like has helped me in my career many times. Like we have a really close bond and connection. So my learning was come in with a completely open mind. Don't put too much stock into the feedback you're getting about who you should work with and what you should think about and what messaging does work or what it doesn't. And really go in with an open mind and like build your own perspectives as you go into a new company or as you're building new things or trying new campaigns. Like what worked then doesn't always work now from a program perspective, and you never know when it comes to people. So make friends, build relationships, and focus on data. That's going to make you a really incredibly successful marketer.
Great advice. Always keeping a blank canvas. I think it's very easy and common for there to be some paint on that canvas from other people's opinions, their perspectives, and often, well-intentioned, but there is a reason that you're entering for us to bring that fresh perspective. And like you said, everything changes. So that is fantastic advice. Well, Harmony, I would love to end with 2 questions here. Sure. Always the same. What is one tactic or strategy that is working for you right now?
I mean, to put it simply, user-generated content. UGC, your customers are your best advocates. They should help you sell your product, like lean on them to help you storytell. And the more you invest in building champions within your users and your customers, like the more demand you're going to drive in the future, and the faster you're going to be able to grow. So lean into that. If you have amazing users, you have champions, like help them help support you as a brand and as a business.
And how would people go into that? Let's just say, I want to break this down even more tactically.
Yeah.
For a company that hasn't yet dabbled in user-generated content, what would be that first step recommendation for them to get started? How do you actually encourage that?
Yeah. So a couple of the things we do, which is very tactical, but like when we launch new products, when we have betas, we of course we allow our best users on our betas with the expectation that we're going to look at their data and they're going to give us feedback on the beta before we GA. One of the things we do with all of our launches is we do hype trains from our beta users. And so let's say we'll allow 1,000 new users onto the beta. We'll give them a couple days, and then we do email programs and campaigns to them. And we will even do exec outreach as well via email and via social, and encourage them to talk about it publicly. And so we'll even sometimes give them incentives and fun swag and things to actually do it. But a lot of times, again, communicate with your best users. Like a lot of people will love your product. They probably do love your product and are willing to talk about it. And don't be scared to ask them. So that's one of the fun things is putting together these hype trains of who they are. If you have product data, use the product data and communicate with them and encourage them to speak on your behalf.
That's great. Love the hype train verbiage too. And I mean, influencer strategies are commonly talked about now, but the deepest connections are from your best users, from your greatest advocates. So it's fantastic that you're tapping into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great advice. And what is one widely held belief that revenue leaders have that you think is bullshit or no longer serving us?
Marketing goes through lots of big swing evolutions. And, early on, let's say 20 years ago, it was so brand centric, and brand, it was hard to track, but that's what marketers do. And it's kind of this fun visual business, strategy. Then it started shifting into demand gen, where it's marketing actually should play a role in driving pipeline. So they need to have a pipeline number. And then we completely shifted away from brand and storytelling and customer success and churn and retention. And I think now my biggest thing is marketing should not only be measured on direct pipeline attribution. That shit is not the end all be all. In fact, I don't think you should really ever be talking about attribution unless it is for budget purposes and ROI on actual spend. But marketing plays a big role in brand growth. So just how people perceive you in the market, driving top of funnel, supporting sales on converting through the funnel, driving retention, expansion, and that full customer life cycle. Marketing should own that journey end to end realistically. And so don't only focus on the pipeline, because it's just such a narrow view of what marketing can do for a business.
Oh, Harmony, my heart is singing right now. I am so passionate about this too. Yeah. I love that you said that. I think that this is step 2 for us. First and foremost, we were so top of funnel focused. Now we've progressed down the funnel, But like you said, that's just the beginning. Really, it's, the efficiency metrics and the brand sentiment that feeds into efficiency of conversion, of retention, all the things. And so pipeline is only a small kind of slice of the pie. It's more of a progression in the right direction.
On like the data side and what marketing can own, there's one of the examples of this is our executive team. We have, of course, key results that each of us as leaders are accountable for. And we have lots of managed pipeline metrics and sales, like what marketing needs to support when it comes to pipeline. But the metric that I am held accountable for as the marketing leader is net revenue retention for a very specific piece of our customer database. So like 5+ self-serve net revenue retention is the big one for me. And it just depends on the priorities of your business, but it's not just about that pipeline growth. Like it can go so much deeper and farther into the funnel than that. So just one example of what marketing can do and what they can own.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of great alignment because that's, often such a necessary piece in terms of connecting marketing to the greater holistic go-to-market engine as opposed to purely pipeline, is that alignment and buy-in to the value that marketing brings. Any advice to, leaders for encouraging that kind of alignment or shifting marketing perhaps to focus on NRR or other metrics beyond just pipeline?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just really look at where your business is at in its growth, the tenure, the life cycle of your business. Are you really early stage? Do you actually have, tens of thousands of customers or not? Are you self-serve? Are you product led? Are you sales led? I think it's asking a lot of those questions and then figuring out what is the business impact you as a marketer can have and where does that hit the funnel? Is one of the biggest things to really focus on and think about, and just make sure you're completely aligned with the rest of your leadership team. And if something feels off, like ask the questions because it probably is. That's my big advice. Is just it kind of depends on where your business is at, but have that alignment, ask the right questions early on, and everyone will hopefully ultimately be successful.
Communication, always key. Well, Harmony, this has been fantastic. Really appreciate the time, the tactical breakdown, all the advice. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, please. I love networking. I love connecting with people. We're also hiring a bunch of Superhuman across almost every single org. So find me. I'd love to connect, and don't be shy.
Perfect. Well, wonderful. Thank you again, Harmony. To all the listeners, thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you next episode.